So, what do tariffs mean for the average consumer? Let's find out.
Remember, the army of millions and millions of human beings screwing in little screws to make iPhones, that kind of thing is going to come to America. It's going to be automated, and great Americans, the trade craft of America, is going to fix them, is going to work on them.
That would be like me watching an NBA game being like, oh, it's easy to score a basket. The reality is it's the most complex supply chain in the world. And the way that they have 1.5 billion iPhones and they're able to make them at $1,000 is because of the supply chain that's really been built over the last decade. You build that in the US with a fab in West Virginia, New Jersey, there'll be $3,500 iPhones. It would take Apple $30 billion in 3 years to move just 10% of the supply chain to the US.
$30 billion, 3 years to move 10% of the supply chain.
To move 10% of the supply chain.
Leaving 90% over there.
Leaving 90% over there. And for someone like myself that's traveled throughout Asia for decades, the reality of it, it's a fictional tale. And that's why I think you see what's happened to the stock, because no company is more caught up in this tariff, front and center in this Category 5 storm, than Cupertino and Apple, and that's the shame of it.
So basically with these tariffs, we're getting higher prices, less choice. It's basically like inflation on steroids. And this is not a good look for us.
So from the video, we just saw that this would definitely be bad for your everyday consumption products, right? Like talking about iPhones now costing what, like $3,500 if they were to be produced locally in America compared to China. So these are some things to put into consideration when we're looking at all these tariff wars going on. I think right now, Trump has put 145% tariffs on China. I think either it's 120 or 145.
Yeah.
And that is crazy. Mm-hmm. That is a crazy amount to put.
So could this raise the price of everyday tech, like the iPhones and the laptops?
Let's watch.
Yeah, let's figure it out.
That smartphone in your pocket is now at the center of an escalating trade war. President Trump's wave of tariffs in early April is sending shockwaves through the stock market, with Apple potentially facing the biggest impact of any tech company. Experts warn iPhone prices could jump 30 to 40% as President Trump's tariffs on Chinese imports take effect.
If the iPhone prices were to jump 30 to 40%, consumers would spend a lot less, they would upgrade a lot less frequently, and that's going to put a huge damper on Apple's profit.
According to Rosenblatt Securities, an iPhone 16 starting at $799 could cost over $1,100, and the iPhone 16 Pro Max starting at $1,599 could cost $2,300 if the tariff cost is passed on to consumers.
It's 100% certain that Apple will pass at least a large portion of these costs on to the consumer. No company in history has ever passed zero onto the consumer, and the reason is because, like all taxes, everyone ends up paying some share of it.
Markets reacted quickly to Trump's tariff announcement. Apple shares tumbled on the news, with much of its production based in China, which is facing some of the toughest tariff increases.
It's really difficult to see what the upside of all of this is.
That's Dave Hebert, a senior research fellow at the American Institute for Economic Research. Now, he says the timing on when Apple products could get more expensive all depends on the tech giant's existing supply and contracts.
The profitability of Apple is going to go down as they eat those costs in the short run. Once those contracts are up and they can be renegotiated, however, those prices are going to be passed on straight to the consumer.
Apple isn't waiting to react. The Wall Street Journal reported on April 7th the company plans to send more iPhones to the US from India instead of China. Apple is expected to make around 25 million iPhones in India this year, 10 million of which are typically sold within India. And according to Bank of America analysts, if Apple sends them all to the US, it could supply about half of America's iPhone demand. While that might soften the blow, Apple's core production remains anchored in China. The short-term workaround is a big deal because iPhones make up 50% of Apple's revenue. And according to Wedbush analyst Dan Ives, Apple is especially vulnerable to Trump's trade policies. In an early April note to investors, he says, "In our view, no US tech company is more negatively impacted by these tariffs than Apple, with 90% of iPhones produced and assembled in China." The White House says these tariffs on China will bring high-tech manufacturing back to American soil. Here's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick on CBS.
Wow. Okay. So basically, we're going to be paying what, 43% more. So it's like you're getting the Pro Max for like the base model.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'd rather just get the iPhones produced in China than having them produced here in the United States, because the prices are going to be way up. We
That's true.
we cannot afford that.
Maybe just switch to Samsung.
I don't know about that. I feel like when you're used to using like iPhone,
You know.
it's so hard for you to go back to using Android. You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't know. Android might be the way to go if Apple is struggling, because I already think the iPhones are like crazily overpriced, to be honest. Like every single year they're coming up with something new. And now to actually now increase the cost when it's already like a lot, you know, in the economy with things not really moving well. I don't know how that's going to look.
Yeah.
So do these policies help or hurt your business? Because Trump has mentioned that he believes increasing the tariffs will create more local businesses in America and is going to force Americans to be able to now be self-sufficient.
Right. And that is good for the economy. But is it really though? So now the real question honestly is like, would you rather pay 43% more for an iPhone?
I would just switch to Android. They're talking about people's rent prices for a phone.
Yeah, literally.
They said 2,000. Did I hear 2,500?
That's huge.
Are you?
Oh my God.
That's someone's monthly income. That's someone's rent.
Yeah, I'd
for
rather
a phone.
Man, I'd rather go back to using flip phones before I drop 2K on a phone, honestly.
Android it is.
Yeah.
Android, here I come.